welcome back to Reclaiming America. We've got another terrific show for you this week. And instead of just me and Bill and the occasional awesome Greta babbling on, we brought on a guest today. A guest who has his own podcast. And we will put links for that in the show notes. But let me bring everybody on. So I'm Dan. Bill?
I'm Bill, and that's the babbler, according to you.
Do I really babble?
I said I babbled.
No, you didn't.
I was kidding anyway. Stop it. That's Greta. And then
Tony heard you say it, so I have a witness. I'm Greta, and our guest today is.
You're supposed to
Take it
introduce
away.
Introduce myself. I'm Dr. Tony Maglione.
Dr. Tony Maglione, a good Italian man, just like me. Come on, Tony. I just gave you love. You're supposed to say.
Oh,
I like to have a little fun.
The best thing I love about you is the fact that there's no hair except on the face, so that's good. Very smooth. Very smooth.
Yeah, it's a look I've had for a while. So anyway, lots to talk about. I'm going to throw it over to the Greta Bill area and let them get things started as they look at each
Hi,
other.
everybody. We're going to get started with Dr. Tony's. As you may or may not know, but Tony is a noted author. He's a great cardiologist. He's been a great speaker around the state and other areas talking conservative issues. As a matter of fact, if you look for him online, you will find his books. They're on Amazon. He's got a number of them out there. He's answered some of the other ones out there. I think, well, you've heard enough from me. We need to hear from Dr. Tony. Hello, sir.
Well, thank you for that very kind introduction. I am very fortunate that I get to be on your show again, because we were talking, believe it or not, in our office when you came last week about the human trafficking situation, and you tried to tell you some of the stats that they didn't really give for the people that saw The Sound of Freedom. That was actually taped, over 4 years ago, and it didn't really get released till 2023, and so that was a long, long wait. And I think it had to do with who was going to show it. It wasn't until a different producer picked up the film that it got shown. But to me, the most important part is after researching the numbers, because they came across and stated some numbers, and these were numbers that were true 4.5 years ago. But they are not true now. They're actually much worse. So everybody would expect this. The border's been open. You would expect some things are happening. Open borders is a panacea for the sex slave human trafficking business. There is a business in the world. There are a couple of agencies that follow it that actually have about 35 million slaves in the world. And now it's closer to 40 since that film has been released. And people just don't understand. If we don't close borders, or we let refugees come across borders as they did, 4 or 5 years ago, 6 years ago, that was basically a haven for the human sex traffickers. And it's not just sex traffic. It's that 20% of the people trafficked are children. They're under the age of 15. And so you've got about 8 million kids out there who are enslaved, having to do sex acts, and worse. Some is just work. They're scattered mostly throughout Asia and Africa, but there's some in the United States and the Americas. But the thing that's striking, the striking thing, which they didn't say at the end of the movie, is that we're less than 5% of the world population, but we account for 50% of the revenue of the human trafficking, sex trafficking business. And that business is over $150 billion a year. And that is an unbelievable amount of money. And that's why it's in. The thing that's even worse that it didn't mention in the movie, which makes it, pretty mellow in comparison, is that there is a dark web, that things are being done to kids, and not just watching them do sex, but actually paying to have them, mutilated or killed. And like I said, most of the money's coming out of the United States, almost 50%, and we're less than 5% of the population. So as a country, we're 10 times worse than anybody else. And that's striking because, I mean, we've gone from a, you know, Judeo-Christian nation 50 years ago to now the majority of people are pretty much against God. And so that was my main point that I wanted to get across. 2 million kids each year. The not closing the border is one of the biggest, you know, ways of getting the trafficking done here in the United States. And that stuff just needs to stop. The fact that politicians are mentioning it, I only heard Dr. Rand Paul, the Senator Paul, mention it, but nobody else has really touched upon it, how horrible it is. And the reason he mentions it, he's also very much pro-life. And, we've also, over the last 50 years, we've had around 350 million abortions. That's more people that live in the United States have been killed before they were born. So I just wanted to throw out that number because Bill asked about that when we were together in the office last week, and just throw that out there. And if you got any questions about it, because the way this started was a way of controlling the population too. Obviously there's pedophiles, but it's another way of controlling people and getting people to be killed or to be used to make money and have power over them. And so, and this is, as you know, is mainly a leftist thing. There are people on the right who pay for this. Don't be surprised. But I just want to throw that out there because the movie really was soft in terms of telling you what's really going on, because what happened to those two kids in the movie happens to 2 million kids a year. So that's the main point, that as a country, we're going so far downhill morally that I'm worried about the future, for all people who have your kids and grandkids right now, as to the direction of our country. And so that was a main thing that, I just wish it got more emphasis and that people would be able to have an honest discussion, because I think that would solve very quickly the need to close the border and stop trying to get other things attached to a bill to be able to do anything about the border, because it should be a standalone bill that actually closes it, that actually gives stiff sentences to people that are caught in human trafficking. That means, a life sentence, because to me, there's no other alternative. Anybody who's in that business doesn't deserve to be on the streets. So go ahead. Any reaction? Go ahead. I'll take a break.
Let me take a question
Well,
for you.
let me throw a quick one out, and then I'll let you have it, Bill. So I was interviewing on my other podcast a law enforcement officer roughly 2 months ago. It was right after Thanksgiving, and he said to me that there is more money being made now from human trafficking than there is the drug trade. That's a scary thing to think about.
Yeah,
Drugs are horrible, but that's unbelievable. When he said that to me, I was stunned into silence.
Yeah, the numbers support that. I mean, and it's all behind the scenes. Nobody knows. Everybody keeps quiet about it. We know Hollywood's involved. Certain Democrats are involved in all this stuff, but it's able to be kept quiet. I don't know how they managed for all these years to be able to hide it and suppress it, because it is astounding, and it's so obvious as to the fact that it's happening. And so, to me, it just means, I'm biblical, as you guys know, and there is right and wrong. There is light and darkness. This is very dark. This is very wrong, and this is very evil. And it just needs to be exposed, because the idea of abusing 2 million kids a year on Earth is astronomical for things that are, that people don't even want to think about. It's just unbelievable to me.
Bill, what do you think?
Tony, I know 50% of the income for these dark people are coming from the United States. Do we have any idea what the percentage of the population is that's involved in that 50%?
Well, if you just figure out $75 billion they're generating from the United States, and you divide that times how many people would be interested in generating that much money? It just can't be a few billionaires. It's got to be tens of thousands of people doing that, just statistically, just mathematically.
We're talking about 10% of the population, 5%, 50%.
Oh, it could be anywhere from less than 1% to maybe 5%. Yeah, I don't think you're going to know, because I don't think anybody can do statistics. They can only do statistics on the money changing when they look into it. There, like I said, there's two agencies in the world that look into this, and they come up with the range. And so I'm giving the average of those two companies because nobody else has been doing this for the last 25 years, and they actually figure out the number. And probably, they could be off by 5 or 10%, but within the margin of error, they're pretty accurate because it's actually happening, and they're able to see changes where it's getting worse. And that's a reality that is made worse by the attitude on the left is of open borders and by the sickness of just going away from a moral base where we actually would treat another human being, in that manner. It's just horrific, really terrible. But you guys know we don't have politicians who have guts. You have one, Mr. Trump, and a few in the Senate and in the House, but they're very few. I mean, that should be like the motto of everybody running on the right should always be to protect our borders, to protect our children, to protect all the citizens. I mean, this is constitutionally the way it should be. And to me, as a doctor, the second topic I wanted to get into, and I will if you guys don't have other questions or comments about this, but it's really because all of this ties in. Everything's about power and control and protecting their hedonistic, self-pleasuring instincts that are just totally evil. And it's become that way in medicine. And I'm finishing up, as you know, Bill, in a few months. I'm retiring, and I'm finishing up over a 44-year career. And it's just frightening to see the direction of things that are going in medicine. We know just based on there's people advocating unscientific things and people being silenced for actually saying the good science. But I'm going to just tell you right around here, Brunswick County, New Hanover, here in southeastern North Carolina, there's an organization that basically has all the dibs in those two counties of healthcare. They basically account for 95% basically of the business. And it's become a business. It's not a profession. It doesn't mean that the doctors or nurses have changed that much, but many of them that stay in the system buy into it. And so it isn't the people that are so bad, it's the system that's bad. And I'll just give you an example. I've had, hundreds of patients tell me and complain. 90% of the people who tell me about the hospitals in Brunswick or in New Hanover complain about it. Less than 10% are happy with their experience. And the reason is there's a system where, and this has happened to my wife, it's happened to me, well, they'll double or triple charge, which is, fraudulent. They're doing it to get money. They know people can't defend themselves. Imagine what happened to my wife. She was triple charged. She was upset. And, we paid the second time just to get it out of the way because it was under $100 just because I knew they were, crooked. And I then, on the third time, I then wrote a letter up to, you remember Mike Causey, he's been on the Department of Insurance, North Carolina Insurance. He's a Republican. I wrote to him, explained step by step all the mistakes they made, the things and how they responded to my wife, how they responded to me. I was canceled from the office manager. I'm canceled from talking to the doctor doesn't return the call. And, it was a perfectly mistake on their part. But just like the Democrats, they doubled down on it. They made an obvious mistake that anybody with second grade math skills can figure out. And they were all over the place with their numbers and explanation. And so you get ignored by your own state insurance. And I just was warning them that if they're doing it to a doctor and a nurse practitioner, they're doing it to everybody. They're ripping off everybody. And look, I can tell you there's things that are being done that are not right. My advice to people is if you need to have, as you know, Bill, you need to have family members who know about healthcare that can guide you the right way because they don't care. I mean, they really don't care. And I didn't want to say it, but after 44 years and hundreds of patients telling me stuff, I've got to tell you that people in this community need to be aware because, I love being a doctor. It was a great profession. I'm so privileged to have, be able to work so many years and not miss work and have a very healthy experience. But what I see is that everybody, if they're having a procedure, you better double and triple check and have somebody with you that knows what they're doing because they miss stuff. I went for a procedure, we went on the same day, have two different procedures, me and you. And basically my experience was 50-50. Half the experiences were bad, half were fine. And that's not good for medicine. We try to have a track record of like 98, 99% is acceptable. And that's just unacceptable. And it's not about complaining about it. I'm just stating it as a fact, as I would the same facts I gave you before on human trafficking. I mean, when 9 out of 10 people are telling you bad stories, that's not good. When just 10 years ago, you'd have 8 out of 10 telling you good stories. So that's the problem now. And I just want to tell the people in the community, just really, really protect yourself. Get as much advice as you can. Contact people outside the system to see if what they're doing is the way it should be done. Because I question a lot of the methodology simply because it's profit based and it's not done honestly and it's not done with any ability to even say anything. Because even when you say something so obvious and simple, they will shut you down and actually try to blame you for complaining. It's just like what's being done on the national stage by the Democrats, by the left. So that
with that said, we got to take a short break and pay a few bills, and we'll be back shortly to Reclaiming America.
Welcome back to Reclaiming America. I'm Greta. I'm here with my co-hosts, Bill and Dan, and our wonderful guest, who we love talking to, Dr. Tony Maglione. So, Dr. Tony, what would you like to talk about now?
Well, I found out that I think that I'm talking too much. I'm hoping you guys will ask me more questions. But the other thing I found out during the break, I'm just amazed of things we can't talk about that probably would get censored. Like I was just talking about in medicine, a doctor, nurse practitioner, we got censored for pointing out an obvious mistake they made. And they doubled down as if they didn't make it. And when you have that, they're obviously going to censor people if they're trying to rip them off financially. And they're going to censor you if you try to say somebody did something wrong. You're just, back in my day, and your wife knows it, Bill, we had checks and balances where people saw things and you went through, we had committees and we tried to improve things because people are human. Mistakes are made, things are done. And, if you don't correct that, it will cost people's health and their lives, maybe, and possibly. So it is a pretty serious thing. So to me, the ability to be canceled and not have an open dialogue about anything in the United States makes us more of a third world country than ever before in our history.
For an example, Tony, I'm going to get his banned now because I'm going to tell you that if you use the word dead, it's illegal. You have to say people are unalive.
No, it's the S word that you can't use.
The
I
S
don't know
word.
what that is.
You can't. Don't say it because
Don't say it. Don't say it.
it. So and now wait, that's not bad enough because I agree with you 100%, Tony. Now even saying they're unaliving themselves, that's starting to get people pushed back on. So get ready for it. Sit down, my friends. It's now going to self-deleting because apparently that's less offensive. It is absurd that we are getting to this level. But unfortunately, we're not the ones who control the language, right? The social media companies are. They own the platform, so they get to do what they want. The positive, though, I'll throw out there, and I want to get your thoughts, Tony. I give Elon, I call it Elon's world, Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. I prefer Elon's world. It's pretty good.
Thank God that he bought it.
Yeah, I mean, imagine where we would be without it. And there's a lot of bad on there because I'm on it all the time now. I used to be on it constantly up until 2016. Then I had to get off because it got so bad. And I have a feeling it will again this year. But, it's interesting to see that both sides of the viewpoints are being shown and allowed to be shown. As long as you don't attack someone personally, it's pretty much fair game. But yet, you look at the other social medias, you say the wrong word and they'll take you down.
Well, I mean, it's sad because our country's going in the wrong direction. We had, you know, really brilliant founding fathers who understood that we had a biblical country, we had a biblical obligation if we were going to be governed by its own people. And when you silence your own people, you're not governing correctly. It's, it's the same as any authoritative dictatorship or rule. And so it just quiets just people down to a point that it just, look, I'm about truth, you know, and because biblically the word of God is the truth. And many of us are blessed by the ability over the years to connect the dots and understand the difference between good and evil. And we see it. People, one of the sayings, and I don't know if you've heard it before, truth is like the new hate speech, because the truth is actually going to be hated because, let's face it, it's not the left's agenda. The truth has nothing to do with it. Their agenda has it. They don't care about the truth. In fact, they hate the truth. And we know that, for instance, on the human trafficking thing, let me just back up a little bit here so that I give you something on that. We know that they wanted to do something called eugenics, over a century ago. We know the major players, Margaret Sanger, right? Hillary Clinton, won one of the awards, the Margaret Sanger Awards one year, and idolized her. And Gates and Fauci, they're big eugenics now. They pretty much stated in their own writings they would like the population of the world to decrease by a third. So one of the things we do know is that there's going to be more pandemics that are man-made that are going to create death, because that's the wish of the people who have money. And if you follow the money, you would see what happened with Pfizer, Moderna, and Gates in terms of financial improvement shortly after. So he knew what was happening. He knew what was being let out. He knew all the timing, so he can profit the most. And all that only leads to more control and more destruction, because their bent is to hurt people. And that, to me, again, in talking about the medical part, is if we had a medicine process that was there on behalf of helping people. Now it's all hospital based because it's all corporations. They churn you in and out. They get you out as quickly as possible. They make as much money from insurance companies as they can. They rip you off as much as they can. And the care is suboptimal, as we've talked off the air about some examples that we know. And to me, that's frightening. That's why I'm really, even though I'm leaving the area, I still care about all the people that live here and also throughout the country and the world. We need to have and be the example of how to take care of people. And it shouldn't be hospital based. Again, it's just like the other thing we're talking about before. It's all related. If you have individual doctors out there in their own businesses, they're not going to be controlled by corporations, big hospital, big farm, big government, big tech. They're not going to be controlled. And people are going to have more choices, just like having more small businesses. If you just have a few, they'll set the price. You're at their mercy. That degree of an open market, a free market, is what made this country really great. And and that was foreseen by our founding fathers. And they knew that we would go in that direction. But it's people that's going to mess it up. People who want more power and are willing to usurp the Constitution. And that's what we've been witnessing. We've witnessed it now in medicine. We've been witnessing a lot in all the other areas, whether it's politics or law and Hollywood and media. We've witnessed that for a long, long time. So that I just wanted to finish that thing before we get to banks, because that was the third topic. And I'll pause if there's anybody wants to interject.
Let's the banking, because I have some questions offline for that. Something
you got
else.
some? Oh, okay.
Let's finish the banking first.
Let's go to banking. Okay. Very simply, I had an experience recently, and I've always thought in following that there was a lot of digitalization of money now. They don't want us to have cash. They're going to do that because they're going to do it because on one day they can wipe you out. Already Biden's talking about getting after people's IRAs, which basically means, somebody's told them the majority of the wealth in this country is by people over the age of 65. It's the group, not the 45 to 65 that are the next group, but the 65 and older. So if you want to keep power and steal money and lie, you go after where the money is, as rob the bank where the money is. The bottom line is, I came to experience just realizing my own bank that had given me a equity loan in the past to do some home improvements, call in December, find out I'm going to sell a house, but I want to buy one first. Can I put my house as home equity? They told me the percentage. And I told them, this is my situation financially. This is my assets. This is my income, whatever. And they said, no problem. It's 5 weeks later, I put a bid on a house, called the bank. No, you don't have enough income. I said, well, I've got twice as much money and a house. So I've got 3 times the assets of the money I'm borrowing. And they would say, no, you don't have enough income. They can't look out of the box they're taught. And when you're dealing with that, that's again anarchistic. It's just, it would drive you crazy because it throws out logic. I told them, so you'd rather have somebody with just a house, not 3 times the collateral, and a job making more money. And I, talking to other people, they want that because then you're indebted to the banks and they control you better. That they want to give money like they did. Remember the crisis back in 2008? They had let people buy houses with 0% down, and obviously it was going to crash. It's a terrible strategy. And when you start doing that, you're gonna mess things up. And so my own personal experience, I want to just tell people, SECU people recommended try them. Their process was frustrating, but in a week they approved it. Took 1 week. I got the appraisal. It's going to take a couple more weeks to get the money to be able to buy the house, but it's going smoothly, pretty much as they said. And so it can be done. And people don't know the SECU is privately owned. It's not federal. I mean, it's owned by people. So it's like the Green Bay Packers, own the team by the citizens in Green Bay. It's a similar type strategy. So you're not under that type of regulation to do something by the book, to have illogical reasoning, because the people that are doing this are the same people that are teaching in the schools, making up curriculum, doing all the stuff that we know is crazy, is upside down. Everything is the opposite of what it's supposed to be. And so, my advice for people is, not to just buy gold and silver. That's an option. I'm not giving out financial advice to people, but I would say my advice is, think about having something that you could live on without depending on this government or the banks or the system, because the system is terrible. It's only getting worse. And it's not meant to be pessimistic. It's just meant to be realistic so that one can better prepare themselves, have enough water, have enough food. Think of having a garden so you can grow stuff, a greenhouse or whatever you need to accomplish these things. We're moving. My wife and I are frankly moving out of Wilmington because it's become too woke. It's become too crowded and too against any of my values, not by and large. And we're going to a very small town. As you know, Bill, you and I were New Yorkers. I come from the Bronx. I'm going to be living in a community off a city that's, a third of the size or a quarter of the size of Wilmington, going up north. But I'll be living in a community a few miles away that only has 700 people. And I'm at the end of the block. I bought some land, the greenhouse. I've got a garden there, and we've got 3 different sheds besides the house, because I figure we may have to be self-sufficient at some point. This was never a possibility before 2008 or 2009. Every year since then, it's become more possible because we know who's behind this president, and the people supporting this person is out to ruin the country besides improving his lot. And there's a danger in this year of Biden getting replaced by his wife, as I think you guys know. And I think that's scary because these are people out to annihilate this country and the world and have control with a very small people of a one world, globalist world order. Go ahead.
Now, I have I want to move a little bit ahead of that, but you put me on that target with that last statement. What about your reaction to what just happened we just been listening to all day, which is basically we have a president who is too feeble to remember what his problems were. He can't be punished for his misdeeds. However, he's good enough to be president.
Yeah, it's a 2-tier system. It's totally unconstitutional, unfair, immoral, everything wrong. Everything that's wrong with this country is exemplified by this administration, by the people in the DOJ, by the people in the FBI, by what's going on, Capitol Police, all of that stuff. It's just amazing to me that I know we outnumber them. but they have the bully pulpit. They're louder. They're complainers. They have more say because they got more power right now. I just hope we can turn it back in 2024 and we get the right people in positions that can make changes and make wholesale changes, because that's what I'm praying for, because we don't have the power. Prayer is one of the ways we can maybe accomplish this. We need God's help. There's no question in my mind.
Well, I agree with you on that. Take it a little bit further. Do you think they will actually use the 25th Amendment on him, or do you think he's going to run again? Are they going to replace him in 2024? What's your
Well,
thought?
I mean, yeah, to me, I mean, he was in second stage dementia when he was running, and nobody, he shouldn't have been running 7-Eleven. He makes fun of Indians, remember? Um, how you see all Indians in 7-Elevens. He shouldn't even run 7-Eleven. He was not incapable of doing that, let alone a country. And he's not running this country. Everything is pre-scripted and written for him. He has no mental capacity to function. He's an angry, bitter person who never did anything right, has a lot of power, is a crook and a liar and a thief. And, and now dementia is overcoming him, is in own health. All those other things were just his character, but now something that he can't control is controlling him, and they're using him. And if they feel he's expendable, they'll get rid of him May, June, July, right before the convention, and just put in somebody else of picking. And right now, if I know the person behind Biden, you would think it's this person's wife who's controlling things.
Well, I don't know, because I remember hearing just the other day there was a play from President Obama in the last term where they asked him about a third term, and he said, "What I would really like is to just be able to sit in my basement in a pair of jeans and whatever else, and have a figure out there that to do everything I want done for a third
That's
term."
correct. Yep.
And it does sound like it's happening, don't you?
It's coming to fruition. 100%. To answer your question, of course, he's incapable of running, and the 25th Amendment applies to people like Biden.
Do you think they'll pull the trigger on him, or are they going to wait till the convention and get rid of him there?
No, I think I think they'll convince him to step down. Jill will tell him, because they're there at the beck and call of the people above them. He's not the most powerful person in the world.
Do you think the Democrats are ready to accept Vice President Harris as president?
Well, look, in a way, it was a good pick because it kind of protected him. But I don't know. Like I said, the Democrats, they can switch strategies and get everybody behind them in a matter of days. They can switch, as we've seen in the past. The Republicans can't even vote to do, to Mayorkas, to even,
impeach him.
Impeach him, yeah. They can't even get enough votes or enough people to show up so they had enough votes. I mean, that's sad. So we're in very bad territory right now, where we really have to pray and get united as a party and leadership. Right now, there's only one leader who can put us in the right direction the next 4 years. There's nobody else. You have to put everything else aside, whatever character flaws. You have to decide, we got to go back, make America strong again, make it, strong militarily, make it more moral, hopefully, and maybe get to a place where we have discussions about allowing prayer in school and allowing people to have discussions about religion rather than have it, because it's not freedom from religion, it's freedom of religion by government demand. That was the whole point of the First Amendment. And so that's just crazy, all this talk about doing things only one way, and if you're not, you're canceled. Because obviously that leads us to in a third world situation where few people are leading and controlling a massive amount, and that's not the United States of America anymore.
Okay, with that point, it's time to take another break again, and we'll be back again shortly with Reclaiming America and Dr. Tony Mag. Welcome back to Reclaiming America. Greta, Dan, and I are having a great conversation with Dr. Tony Mag, a noted author and a great doctor and a good friend and a great conservative. We're going to take the next few minutes and just discuss some of the local things that have happened or some of the national things that have happened in the last few days, we could fill up 2 or 3 days with talking about all that. But why don't you start us off, Dan?
Well, for those that may not know, there was a little hullabaloo in Nevada this week, where the Republicans held not just a primary, but also a caucus. And candidates were not on both sides of that. And the best part of it all, this one's going to go down in the annals of history in my mind. But in the primary, who was the winner by a landslide? None of the below or above, whatever it was. So second place by a wide margin was Nikki Haley. And I just thought, how fun is this? But here's another thought, and I'm going to throw it out to you guys with it. What does this say for the fall? Because I think the electorate is reaching the point where they don't want either party. I really do think it's reaching that point, and I think in some ways this was a message. Throw it back to you guys. What do you think?
I don't either.
No, I think this was just simply the Trump voters saying, Nikki, this is for you.
Tony?
Yeah, I think so too. I think it's an anti-Nikki vote, where she's the only candidate and she can't even win. I think that's, as you said, that's pretty ironic and kind of humorous and makes the candidate look incredibly foolish. So, and plus, like you said earlier, could be that she's doing this to get some money in the war chest for the future, or to please people in the middle for the future. And she's not doing anything for now because obviously she knows she has no chance, unless, even if something catastrophic were to happen to Trump, she still wouldn't be the nominee.
What's interesting is when you look at her. Now, I skew more center than you guys, right? So I tend to watch those podcasts and whatnot and the polling in that way.
Center.
Right.
What's that?
You skew to the
Yeah, we're discussing you skewing to the center.
Huh.
That's like being almost pregnant.
Skewing. I didn't say I was center. Center right.
Don't cancel. This is new language for Dan.
Oh, it's going to get me, The thing, though, that I find very interesting, like you're talking about 28, the center, left and right, despises Haley more than anybody, more than the right or the left does. The center really dislikes her because they see her as a fraud, right? She is a Republican disguised as a Democrat. I've seen it that way. I've seen it the other way around too. It's interesting. I don't think anybody in the center would ever vote for her in a general or in 28.
Dan, 4 years from now is a long time.
I agree. You're right.
Regardless whether Trump wins or loses, there's going to be a new candidate running in 2028 because he can't do a third term. So I think this is a way to build a war chest, get her name out there, and time heals a lot of wounds.
Yeah.
I don't know. The internet is forever now, guys. They're still dredging stuff up from 16 to use against Trump. The internet's not going away, and she's made a lot of mistakes on the internet. Stuff she has said. Vivek Ramaswamy, who I thought was gearing up for 28, stepped in it big time. They're making mistakes. I think my personal opinion, we've talked about this a little bit, whoever becomes VP is probably going to be the 28 candidate for the Republicans, whoever that might be. But it will be pretty open at that point because Trump's certainly not going to be running again. And who knows who the Democrats are going to run. They got nobody on their bench at this point. It's going to be Michelle most likely this year. That's my gut feeling.
Well, I have money on that one. That ain't happening.
Not happening.
I don't think so.
Not happening.
Mm-mm.
I hope you're right, Bill.
Who do you think it's going to be?
Anybody but. She's got too thin a skin to possibly run for politics, number one. And she's sitting on too much money.
I have 2 words for you. Dallas Cowboys. See, Tony, all I heard for 6 months was how the Cowboys were going to win the Super Bowl. Nothing
I didn't
else?
say what year.
They never win. They haven't won. They haven't won in the playoffs for a very long time, so they're not.
You tell them, Tony.
Did you hear the worst thing that was actually put out this week? That the NFL was considering moving the Super Bowl to Dallas because they want to be in a neutral place?
I did not hear that. Are they serious? Is that a serious thing?
Now, think about it. Think about it. They want to play it in a neutral ground, which means the Cowboys will never make the Super Bowl.
Oh, I get it. All right. I was like, wait a minute. Well, the
Words of
thing,
those the fourth, and you went fifth, sir.
well, you got to understand something. You look at Major League Baseball pulled the All-Star game out of Atlanta for
Yeah.
similar type things, and it ended up looking like fools later on because now apparently they're going to put it back in Atlanta.
Let's go back to politics for a minute. I want all your opinions. Who do you think Trump's VP is going to be?
Tony.
Well, if it's Michelle, I got a feeling it'll be Tim Scott. If it's Michelle is not running, I think it'll be the governor of South Dakota.
That's my number one is Christie. Tim Scott is 1A.
I mean, that's my I'm with you.
Bill?
I was going to say the governor of South Carolina is my, excuse me, of South Dakota is my first choice.
Not the governor of South Carolina.
Yeah. Well, wait a minute. I'm going to get that guy from 95, and I'm going to talk to that German guy from 95. I'm going to be the president for a few minutes.
All that said, I mean, I hope it's not wishful thinking on Noam. Although she's starting to put herself out there more. I've seen her quite a bit in the last week and a half, 2 weeks. I do think, though, Tim Scott's got a realistic shot at it and would be excellent choice.
Yep, I agree. They can't go wrong with either one. They're both conservative, and I think they'd be good for. I mean, I think Pence was good for Trump until January of 2020.
Well, Trump.
21. Was it 21? 21.
Yeah, you make up a good point there, Tony, because I agree with you on that. I think whoever Trump wants has to be a more Pence-like, quiet, because Trump has to be the star of the stage. It's his ego. He's not going to allow somebody who's as bombastic as him to be on the stage with him. It's going to be somebody who's a little bit more sedate, if I'll use that word. I'll throw a third one out there. Bill knows who I'm going to say. I want to get your opinion on it, Tony. My girl, Tulsi Gabbard. I think she's got a shot. Slim shot, but a shot. What do you think, Tony?
I would disagree. I think she might get a position in the administration. I think that's possible.
SecDef?
Not VP though. I'm very surprised. Nothing's impossible.
Nothing's impossible. I think it's a long shot, but I'm thinking SecDef is definitely a possibility for her.
Well, I think you're jumping a little high on that.
Do you?
It would be an improvement.
Our
prostate guy.
I mean, there's a jump.
Gumby and Pokey would be an improvement.
Yeah.
Well, all right, Bill. Who do you think?
But from a practical angle, right? I mean, I like Christine Noem, I like Tim Scott, I like Tulsi Gabbard. But what has happened is Georgia slipped away. Now it's coming back. It's, North Carolina slipped away. It's coming back. South Carolina's in play. Very much so in play. And people don't believe that, but it's true. There's all kinds of weird things happening in South Carolina. And I think that's who the Democrats are going to make a run at next in the South.
That's interesting.
And I think Tim Scott, therefore, would be the most practical choice.
That's a fair statement.
Right.
And he would check a few boxes, so to speak.
Yep.
And he would be a good VP.
Very
and he
much.
would be someone who in the future could become president. Because you got to remember, whoever you're picking has got to be able to step up.
Yep.
Oh, I could absolutely see Scott stepping up in 28. I'm a big fan of his. I have been for a long time.
Well, I'm not going to talk about 28. I mean, no one knows how long anyone's going to live. But whoever's the vice president has to be ready to take over.
Yeah. It might be 25 the way things are. If he's VP, he might be president in 25. That's all I'm going to say. Remember, we're 49-0 on conspiracy theories. So
that's true. We're looking for a few more because we're running out of them.
Yeah.
Well, we all need to pray because, I mean, I'm telling you, they're desperate on the left. I think they're going to try to kill him if he's the nominee getting towards November. I mean, that's the problem. He's going to need to be protected.
Yeah. We hear that a lot.
Yeah,
And,
I mean, it's sad.
and I also hear a lot of people say that Joe Biden's going to not wake up one morning. I'll put it to you like that. Okay. And, make it easy on everybody, so to speak. I
It
don't
seems
know.
like he's been sleeping for 3.5
I was
years
gonna say.
anyway.
Already sleep, so yeah, I know.
Yeah, I don't think Biden will be president by. I actually think it'll be as soon as the next month or two.
I do too.
I think they're going to get past Super Tuesday, lock up the nomination there, so nobody else can run for the nomination.
Yep.
Then I think they're going to 25th him out at that point because they're laying the groundwork now. Even CNN is saying he's got cognitive difficulties. But my opinion, they want to get past Super Tuesday so that none of the other candidates. I mean, they're all minor candidates, but then if he's out, they got a legitimate shot to try and get.
And then you have a wide open convention.
Exactly. So they get it to the point where Biden's locked it up. Then they 25th him out. Harris becomes president. Who knows what happens at that point? Did you see the thing where they were talking to James O'Keefe? Did the date with the guy, and they were basically saying that Biden is completely out of things, not running it, and then Harris is despised. I mean, it kind of shows you where they're at with it all.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, that's why, like you said, it looks like he'll get replaced by somebody of their choosing, and I believe, like you said, it'll happen before the summer.
all right, one last thing. We got about a minute before we have to close down. Supreme Court decision. What's the numbers in favor of Trump? Is it going to be 9-0, 8-1, 7-2, 6-3? Pick a number.
8-1.
Colorado, you're talking about the Colorado
Yeah,
case?
the Colorado decision.
For me, 9-0.
9-0.
8-1.
Hey, I'm 8-1 also. I think Jackson's going to go the other way.
I think Sotomayor is going to go the other way.
No, I don't think so. I think I think Jackson's the one that's going to go the other way. Just based on her questioning the other day.
Okay.
Well, we'll
I
give it
haven't
until
heard from you,
next
Sir
week.
Dan.
I said 9-0.
Oh, we didn't hear you.
Of course, because you don't listen to me, Bill. When have you
Sure.
ever?
What'd you
Dan
say?
and I are on the other side.
All right, anyway.
Tony and I are on the right side, Bill.
Right side.
We have
The
to shut
blind,
this
maybe the
down, guys.
blind side.
What'd you
Tony,
say?
I want to thank you for coming on. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you.
And, please don't be a stranger, even when you move to the hinterland. You can always find us and come back with us on Zoom and whatever else we want. We love what you do, sir. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the kind words. It's been, great to do this. Thank you.
Wrap it up, Bill.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to close down Reclaiming America.
Hey, it's
Back
Henry.
in a week.
It's
And-
Henry.
And
The
there's
star.
Henry now come up. He's our next guest. And Dan, why don't you tell them where they can find the show?
Well, they can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Rumble. I think that's it for now. And then we also have our other TikTok channel where Bill has his daily commentaries.
Right. So anyway, everybody, see you guys soon on Reclaiming America.
All right, bye, everybody.